This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so Eddie, I'm assuming you're going to be driving the slides too? Are you
Yes.
sharing? Okay, awesome. So welcome everybody. I love seeing all the familiar names in the chat here who's on. This is Caroline Roberts. I am logged in as SAME Seattle Post since we got our go-to meetings. I guess that's how I show up these days. Eddie, let's go on to the next slide. So this week, this month, sorry, we're going to be talking about impact. And I think some of the biggest impact, definitely not the only source of impact, but one of the biggest that we've seen from the leader development community of interest lies in our LDP, our leader development program. And so we're going to be talking about the utilization projects that we've done in the past and what they're all about, how that impacts every member of our society. Some of them immediately, today, and then some of them how it's going to impact today as well as being stretched into the future. And I would love to hear any ideas that you guys have. If it's your local post and you see a need, or if it's at the regional or national level. I hope you'll speak up with some amazing ideas or suggestions for folks to think about. We're always looking for creative ways to deliver that impact and value to all of our members. And then also kind of walk through the 2021 LDP class and give some feedback to those folks as they're looking at these things right now, and answer any questions that you guys may have. I don't know if anybody on the call has applied for this upcoming LDP class, but maybe you have questions, and I'd love to hear them. And then just an open discussion, whatever's on your mind as far as impact and utilization projects. Okay, next slide. So again, I'm Caroline Roberts. I'm the Leader Development Community of Interest Chair. I'm with Jacobs, and we have Roland de Guzman on the call. So he is our vice chair, and I would be lost without him, as well as Mr. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Darrow. He is vice chair in the COI and specifically leading all the efforts for the Leader Development Program. So next slide. So digging into these utilization projects, every participant in the Leader Development Program must complete a utilization project. And, that might sound daunting. It's not meant to be. I think it's an exciting opportunity. It's an opportunity for these individuals to learn more about themselves and how they lead. And honestly, they pick what their projects are on, and it's what they're passionate about. So it's fun, I think, for myself and everybody to see their passions come alive, and how they execute these things. The only requirement of the project is that they must provide value to our members, to society members. And again, that could be at the national level, at the regional level, or at the local post level. That's the only requirement, and they need to be able to clearly identify and articulate, that value and the impact that it's going to make on the society. And so the participants come up with these project ideas. Some of them come up with it completely on their own. Some of them, it's a conversation with their mentors. Every participant has a mentor. They brainstorm together. Sometimes it's the class brainstorming collectively as a class, right? It's amazing how much we learn from each other. So once the idea is generated, It's selected by the participants, the mentors, and anybody involved in the program will help kind of flush that out. Eddie Gonzalez has been a huge help in that realm, and they are approved by SAME leaders, every single one of them. So the SAME leaders I'm specifically thinking about, for those of you who do not know, General Schrodell sets up a call with every single participant for the participant to introduce their ideas, again, articulate that impact and that value, and hear his feedback on it, and ultimately his approval. I think I'm safe in saying one of my takeaways, generally speaking, from General Schrodell is to aim high, right? Aim big. Don't limit yourself. So I always appreciate that. I feel like, sometimes folks are a little cautious about, maybe not necessarily taking on too much, but just not fully seeing the impact that they're going to have, or not being able to connect that impact to other pieces of the society. And Joe and Eddie are excellent at putting those things together to see a much broader vision. Okay, next slide, Eddie. Okay, some of the projects that have been completed so far, assessing the impact of the Leader Development Program. So that was Zach Payne. I don't know if Zach's on and wanted to speak up about it, about his
He's not on
project.
the call, Caroline.
Okay, that's okay. Um, Brendan established like virtual chapters for deployed service members, and actually came up with the idea of kind of SAME in a box, which is kind of like a toolkit for deployed service members to connect them, make them part of the society, and give them some tools, to help them communicate with SAME while they're deployed. Sam Lee established a field chapter here in the Seattle area. I'm in Seattle. If you've ever been to Seattle, we are separated by water. So we have, kind of downtown Seattle, where the Army and I guess some of the Navy's on that side too, Coast Guard. And then you've got the Navy that's on the clear other side of Puget Sound. And so it makes it difficult for the Navy to participate in person in some of our meetings. So developing a field chapter to support those folks is an excellent way to keep them connected and involved in SAME. Stephen looked at frameworks for student chapter, and he did that at the University of West Florida. Holly's, I thought, was fascinating. It's facilitating industry government mentoring, mentorships, mentoring between professionals, and it was amazing to me, her perspective and connecting dots on both sides, the government side and the industry side, and she has the perspective to do it, and how both sides could improve on those conversations. Craig Bryant was instrumental in expanding the leader development program to a leader development community of interest for SAME. Sean published an article with his mentor in TME. So he published a technical article. I forget which volume it was in, but it was on the Navy and resilience and what it means to the Department of Defense. And then we had a huge group project that various people worked on to support STEM efforts and camps, and kind of unifying the camps across SAME. It ranged from, as I said, that unification to selecting and developing a camp app that could be applied across all of the SAME camps, as well as the mentors and the folks supporting those camps, and actually the parents, which as a parent, I think that's great. It's just another way to see what your kid's doing and to be able to communicate with the camp while your kids are at camp. So if anybody on the call, I want to give an opportunity for anybody to speak up about any of those if they'd like. I think, is that Melissa that just unmuted?
It is.
Hi,
Hey,
Melissa.
so it's been a while. I'm glad to be back on some of these calls. So yeah, we were a part of a big group, and then we kind of subbed out different sections of the camp that we were all passionate for different reasons. But overall, the camp in general is what we were all passionate about. And so the couple that I worked on were really fine tuning the application process for being a mentor or being a helper, or also known as a loggy, and then also for the camper themselves. So there were some things across the board that were really just missing. So we really honed in on getting those more developed better, and then bringing in marketing and suggested having video clips from each of the different camps so you could really see and get a kind of a glimpse of life in the camp. And then we also worked on calling um, other organizations that were out there. And we just started with a huge list of whatever we could come up with, whether it was Girl Scouts of America, there were some military networking ones from spouse groups, all different organizations, teacher organizations. And we cold called these organizations until we were blue in the face and we could find just that right person to talk to. You know, you get passed around 100 times, and we were just looking for relationships with other organizations that had the same goals in mind. You know, STEM organizations or leading, young folks into a STEM career field, all those kind of things, and how to get them to our camp, how to advertise, how to pull more mentors, because we're always short on volunteers or mentoring in the STEM world. So if they have that same criteria already, then why aren't we supporting each other? And then what can we do for their organization as well? So we opened up, I kind of think of it like the Pandora's box, and then got all the right information, and then we were able to pass that on to national to say, okay, here's who you should really start working with and form those relationships in greater detail. So it was a lot of fun.
That's so awesome, Melissa. And you just reminded me of a few things. I mean, one, opening up Pandora's box, right? Like for some of these organizations, you introduce the society to them for the first time, which, is
Absolutely.
broadening our reach, as well as our ability to collaborate. So there's one thing. And then the other thing that I had forgotten about, you mentioned kind of the marketing piece of our camps, which you know, some people may overlook. We had some, it definitely wasn't cohesive across all the camps. And in my
Mhm.
opinion, it was dated, right? So just giving that a more modern refresh, it's just more attractive to all those stakeholders that, you open Pandora's box to, as well as the campers and their parents. Like I appreciated that aspect of it too. And
Absolutely.
Greg,
And
you guys were passionate.
if you're not near a Sammy Post, you're not going to know about these camps. I mean, I didn't grow up near a post, and I would have had no idea, and I would have loved to, as a high school student, attend an engineering camp. So just finding those ways we can network so many groups, it'll really get us a foot in the door.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else? I see Lieutenant Colonel Bryant saying Ben needs to talk. I don't know if he's yanking Ben's chain or if that's legit. Probably both.
Probably the former, not the latter. But Melissa covered me, so I was in Melissa's small group on the camp thing. So she did an awesome job talking about our project.
Awesome.
Craig,
Awesome.
but Craig, go ahead and enlighten us with your project.
Yeah. Craig? He might be somewhere he can't speak. All right.
Because he's in the Army.
I'm going to keep quiet on that one, but that's part of the reason I love you guys. I'm sure Craig feels the love too. All right, let's move on. Next slide. Okay, Eddie, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Sure, thank you. So a lot of what I've been doing for the last 2 years is really, I've had the pleasure of looking at our different activities, and I've benefited from the fact that there's so much that SAME is doing, and it's really just been a question of extrapolating our activities and our programming to what kind of wake are we leaving behind us? What is the net result? It's easy enough to see it at our events and with our magazine, how folks interact with those parts of our business, and then the feedback that we get from those areas being a member benefit. But the piece that we've been trying to get better about quantifying is what is the return on the investment of all the things that we're doing as a society. So if we were to look back at the last 100 years as a aggregation of all the awesome things we've done as a society, what I want us to be able to do now is looking ahead at the next 100 years is how are we then going to change all the areas that we have influence over for the betterment of society, towards our mission, towards our strategic goals. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about right now is with that in mind, is that we now need to, from our programs, from the staff, from just as a mission-based organization, I feel like we need to be able to talk better about the wake that we're leaving behind us. And LDP really presented us with a great opportunity to start thinking that way because it was new. We were kind of forming it as we were implementing it, so that we were changing things up as we went. We're about to enter into our 3rd year and we're still improving it, but it's all in that within that frame of, it's not enough to just recruit these folks, put them through a training, and then wash our hands of them. We need to be in a position to know what they're doing with this and how the society is benefiting. And the projects gave us, in my opinion, the best view of what that impact looks like, because of what they were able to uniquely identify and focus on through their projects. So program impact right now, I'm using LDP as our placeholder, but eventually this kind of thinking will extend to our camps program, where we're gonna need to start looking at beyond anecdotal stories. Where are our students going? How many of them are going into STEM degrees? I think that's the questions we now need to be asking ourselves as a society. With this program, we were able to implement an evaluation tool that the outgoing class submits, and then the incoming class also participates in an intake survey to get some pre and post data we can compare. So there's a lot of that thinking going on. On the program impact side, with the projects that Caroline described, right now they're falling into 3 main categories of outcomes. And all of these then contribute to the program impact that we're talking about. So the first outcome is, through the projects, we've been able to expand the presence of SAME. As Melissa said, there's so many examples where if certain communities knew about us, or knew what we were doing, or knew about our local or national or COI presence, we could really be a resource for these individuals in their professional world, or just in their own personal professional development. So being able to have a field chapter connecting the other side of the sound in Seattle, or finding a way to make deployed service members still feel like they are within the sphere of influence of their technical society. Or if you're a student that finds yourself at a institution that has a student chapter, the chapter represents SAME for those students. So being able to quantify that we now, in the span of a year, have a stronger presence in these 3 areas, I think is a really good talking point for having this kind of program. And then, I should say, feel free to ask questions about any of the projects as we go. I'm pretty familiar with all of them. We've got some task force members here that can chime in as well. And I'll show you where there's more information about each of these when we get to the program impact page. Okay, so the next area that projects are coming, falling into the outcome is adding to the body of industry knowledge. So these are the individuals that they see content that they are accessing elsewhere that they feel needs to be brought into the society. Some of it is specific to certain COIs, some of it is specific to the kinds of skills and affinities we want our members to have or to be exposed to. So when we're talking about increasing energy efficiency or using energy efficiency to increase resilience, there's only so many people within our society that would know how to provide guidance in that realm. But there's likely a lot of other people that would benefit from that guidance. So we want our LDPers to see themselves in that role. You know, we talk about being a subject matter expert within a sphere of influence. You can walk into almost any room and likely be the most technical expert on any one topic if nobody else in the room knows anything about it. So it's really encouraging the LDPers to have that confidence, to know when they are the trusted source for some of this information. And then through our program, really allow them to put some effort into quantifying what that looks like and then giving them a platform to convey that information. Craig, with leadership in the AEC, you know, this was really a question of, are we good at telling our members what we consider leadership within our industry and what is involved with that? Again, some of these are things that they aren't necessarily super knowledgeable about, but part of their project is to then for them to go find where the resources are that they can process and interpret and translate for our members and be the kind of a concierge for this information. In this IGE with Holly's project, you know, some of these are also really reflective of personal situations that they have come across in their professional world. So they're not things that are being, you know, picked out of thin air or that really have no relevance. A lot of these projects are starting with a scenario that they are familiar with, that they feel was either a challenge or something that presented a potential roadblock. And if they found a way to get around it, you know, there's likely going to be other people that need that same kind of guidance. So in her situation, it was, you know, how to match the industry and the government side's awareness of each other so that they're not making any assumptions or defaulting to any sort of you know, lack of understanding of how the other side of the table works, particularly at the young professional level where they might not have been in the industry long enough to know. And then, you know, again, measuring leadership. Some of these are very open-ended questions. One of the elements to the project that I start with when we start working with them on their ideas is, and I think it plays into the professional development of this program, is they're told to find some observation that they want to address in an area that interests them. And the first thing that they have to do is break down the problem to what is solvable or what is able to be addressed within a 4 to 5 month time frame. So the point is for them to come up with a deliverable, but it's up to them to define it. You know, I make it clear to them that they are the ones that are going to determine the success of their project because they're the ones that are defining it. And I think that adds to their confidence and their ability to show some leadership by saying, okay, here's the frame of the big problem, but between now and April, I'm going to work on this piece, and it's still going to be additive to the larger problem. Those are the kind of things they have to struggle with if they know they can't tackle the big issue or it's kind of amorphous. They really need to figure out what is definable and what is able to be addressed within that time frame. All right, seeing no comments, I will keep going. And then the last area of outcomes are best practices that are coming out of these projects. We had a really, you know, a large group of 10 individuals going in on a group project. Our camps program is a hallmark of SAME. We've been running them for over 20 years. But it's only been recently that, and in the last 5 years, that they've all kind of aggregated together as a program versus a collection of independent camps. There's a lot more that can be done with them. We really have been challenged with just volunteer capacity, our ability to recruit, our ability to standardize some of these curriculums. And so the fact that we had so many LDPers interested in this area, one, let us know that the camps program had touched so many of our LDPers in the past, or was interesting enough that they wanted to get involved. But then they each broke it apart in areas that it would have been very difficult for me to have addressed, you know, in any given year, or to have even represented the expertise to develop, you know, some of these projects. So the fact that they were willing to take it on was a big help to me and a big boost to the camps program. Everything from the operations of the app to you know, how to promote it, to how to better organize them, to expanding the capacity. You know, with the how-to guide, if we get more camps, that then also overlaps with the expanding the presence of SAME. Anywhere we're having a camp, bringing in students, we are SAME for those students. So there's some overlapping outcomes that can come from some of these projects. But the other piece to highlight about the best practice is a lot of times we're not seeing what they're seeing. And I think that's another benefit of this kind of program and the projects, is that they are in a unique ability to find, identify a problem or a challenge, and then, you know, spend the time necessary to see how we can address it. We may not have the solution, but at least if we can get the problem defined, for example, that still helps us move along to where we're trying to go. Okay, we have a question here from Ronald. As the program expands, is there an opportunity to build on previous work such as Holly's? Yes, and this has come up in the past where, because the program is designed for the LDPers to really use their own autonomy and their own interest to develop a project, we really leave it up to them to come up with what area they want to be focused on. But when they get their instructions, and I'm going to make a comment about that in a little bit, when they get their instruction manual about the projects, we do list some bullet points of suggestions. And at the moment, because I'm the program manager for LDP, but I also am the program manager for camps, K-12 STEM outreach, young professionals, and the foundation, you know, I'm able to throw in some ideas of things that I would like worked on. That was a lot of year one. This year, we reached out to other departments. So we've got folks working with our membership department, with our strategic partners, with our communications. So we're getting the word out within the staff. I think in the next phase with this kind of presentation is to expand it to other COIs, have COIs bring project ideas to us, posts. Really anybody could help us identify some options. Excuse me, but it would still be up to the LDPers to pick. There had been some discussion about doing a theme every year, where, say, every year we focus on post-level programs or something, and we're not really quite there yet, because I think we're still figuring out what the diversity of project ideas are out there. But any LDPer would be able to follow up on any previous LDPer's work. We also want to set up a scenario where, even though their project may be completed as far as the LDP program is concerned, the project itself may have more work to be done. And we hope that for some of these folks, like with the app, Aaron and Claudia are still our point people for the app. They're also very involved with the camps program. So it was an easy role for them to continue outside, you know, as alums of LDP. They're still participants in the camp program to keep this going. So we do want to create some of that momentum. We do want to create some of that follow-up. But right now, each year starts fresh with a new set of projects that come in. All right, go on to the next one. Sorry, let me get my cursor back here. And the reason that we're highlighting LDP is, again, because we're going through all those steps. We're going everything from identifying the problem, having a person associated with some thought process behind a possible solution or investigation of that problem, and then their ability to offer up some solutions. I will say that we're kind of a victim of our own success, because even with the year one's projects, there's a lot they did that ends up back on staff, and it ends up coming back in with having to be integrated into our capacity. But at least they've gotten us started and have created some momentum for us in that respect. But to further capitalize on what we're doing, I said we're doing this. I'm trying to get us into this shift now of having more talking points about the so what. If we're going to want to start attracting foundations to give us grants, if we want more members that want to expand how they want to engage, the more that we can create that sense of what happens after our programs, I think helps then create more advocates for those programs. So with that in mind, let me unshare real quick and I'll switch over to the web real fast. So with that in mind, we have created a landing page. Sorry, why is it not showing up here? There it is. On program impact. This is where we would start quantifying all the things that our programs are doing. There would be program impact statements and individual program pages, but then this would summarize what we're doing, so that we can really emphasize the wake that we're leaving behind us that I mentioned. Right now, the only project that's, go ahead.
I was going to say, Eddie, this is up now, right? It's live and people can go to it right now.
Correct. I'm still figuring out all the different places to point to it from, and we don't have it yet as one of the drop downs,
Right.
because we're working on how to best fit all this. But it is linked from the COI page
Gotcha.
to talk about program impact. And then eventually, so right now leader development is the one that we've captured the most on. Eventually, the LDP part of this will move into its own page of LDP impact. And this page will just be the summary hub that'll take you to the camps impact page, our scholarship impact page, our young professionals impact page. As we get better about quantifying the impact of some of the activities that we're doing, this is how we would aggregate them and highlight them to the membership and to external stakeholders. So for now, anybody can go into this program impact page, and I mentioned the 3 outcome areas. Here you can actually access the presentation, a summary of the projects, the presentation. Each person has to give a final report and a final presentation to the society. So we have all of those materials recorded here. Ideally, folks are seeing some of this stuff and they want to move on it. It doesn't have to be an LDPer that can action this. It could be a COI member, a post member. A region could take an entire one of these groups and turn it into a region-wide initiative. We're trying to be the source for the who, the what, and the how. The who, the how, and the why, and have other parts of the society figure out the what would come next. So you can go on here and see all of the different projects. And then as each class graduates and their projects get completed, we will keep a running list of all the different projects. And again, this would migrate to its own LDP impact page once, so that it's easier to manage. And this would just be a summary page. Any questions so far? Let me see. Is information on presentations is a great ad. Oh, thanks, Ron. And then Roland says, yes, Roland was commenting on the scale of these projects. When I presented this to the staff the beginning of this year to get them to think about projects, I really didn't want them thinking about these as internship projects or kind of busy work projects. That is how I described it, that they should be thinking about consultant level needs that they have, because that is the caliber of thought and availability that our LDPers are putting behind this. So we do want to get better about highlighting this as an asset and the LDPers as a human resource to the society, but then also get more projects in the mix. Let me go back to the slide here. Got to share my screen first. Oh, sorry, PowerPoint makes you run the slide first and then share it. Let me see if that work.
It's okay, Eddie.
I'm just trying to get back to the slide that we're at. So that's the program impact that I talked about. And then I think I've got one more. Yeah, so my last slide then is, this is where there's an opportunity for the next year's class to get a longer list of ideas. So if you've got a project idea, on that impact page, I do have my contact information, as well as, you can see it on the slide. So if you have anything you want to propose, email it to me. I'll put it in a folder. And then when we develop the instructions for next year's class, I'll add it as a bullet point. That is it for me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eddie. Does anybody have any questions on any of that, or recommendations on ideas or just organization of our landing page for impact? I'm loving it. I'm loving that it's there. We can point our members to it so they can tangibly see some of the output and work product of these individuals. It's kind of amazing.
Yes.
And it's not only are they passionate, but I find that it gets me fired up too, right? Like when it's contagious.
Sure.
It's pretty cool. All right, Pete, thanks. He says that the landing page with projects is great.
All right, I'm done for the day. Thank you. I'm out.
Leaving a high note.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You guys are on your own now. No. All right.
So I think was that it, Eddie, or were there any more slides?
Yeah, just
open discussion. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we were going to offer, if there's any current LDPers on the current class that wanted to solicit any feedback about their projects, we were going to invite them to take advantage of the audience.
Yeah, or just pipe up with your passion, because like I said, it's contagious. When I hear you guys speak about these things, it's pretty cool. So I'd love it if anybody wants to speak.
Yeah, I know we've got Colleen, Tasman, TJ.
Look at Eddie voluntolding y'all.
Or if you just want to talk about your thought process, give a quick, elevator pitch on what project you're working on and why you connected to it, just to give folks some context as to how you think about this. That would be great.
Colleen, I don't know if Kevin's on, but I think you guys are doing a joint one that I think sounds really cool. I'd love for you guys to share.
Absolutely. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I have 3 kids homeschooling in elementary school, so there could be noise in the background.
We get it. I've got kids and a dog here, so no worries.
Absolutely. Really quick elevator speech for ours is all 3 of our folks I am teamed up with Kevin and Thomas, also LDP program, and we were all 3 passionate about STEM. And so our primary concept is to look at STEM in the context of our Native population and communities that are involved with SAME. and try to promote interviews. Sorry, apologies, just one second.
I totally get it. How many of
Yeah.
you guys have had to do that? I totally understand.
Yep. Yeah.
I can keep going.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Thomas.
We really sat down and thought about how could we bring STEM to communities around the country that probably don't have as much feedback or feed loop into the organization or the community. And we focused on the American Indian, Alaskan Native populations. So our project really is trying to reach out to the communities, find out what resources are available to them, and come up with success stories and interview those folks and find out what really helped set them apart. And the end result of all of our research and running into success stories is try to develop some type of advertisement or ad campaign to spread the knowledge of resources available specifically to the American Indian, Alaskan Native populations to try to, build up the STEM within those communities. We all feel that they could use a helping hand as much as possible. If we can get 1 or 2 students that fall in love with STEM as a result of our ad campaign, that's a job well done on our part. It's a pretty audacious goal, in my opinion. We have a lot of work to do and not a lot of time left here. Hopefully we'll have a really good product by May. And I really believe this is gonna be something we continue working on in the years after this, just because it's such an audacious goal. And I feel like once you get it going, you should keep it moving as much as possible. I would like to say I do appreciate everybody on this committee, and then also with the LDP group. We've had nothing but the utmost support from everybody we've reached out to, so I do appreciate that, especially Eddie. Thanks for all your guidance throughout. Is that kind of what you guys are looking for?
Hey, Thomas,
Yeah.
this is Eric. I'm from the San Antonio Post. I think the Post, if you could connect with Post, I think Post would be willing to help with this as well. So I just think about posts that are, possibly near some of these populations that you're talking about, whether it's up in Oklahoma or Arizona or other places. I really think Post would be interested in helping you. So what their challenge is setting something up, but you're setting up something that you might be able to then get to various posts in the areas that you're looking for to assist.
Yeah, we definitely talked through that, especially moving into, this year we're trying to get a good base product to build off of, and then utilizing posts to continue our work, our efforts moving forward. Because like you said, they're local. They have an understanding and connection with the communities already. They can do a lot more good than just 3 people for the entire country. Colleen actually nominated her post to kind of help start pushing that right away. And then I'm from North Dakota. We have a large population. I hope that the Minot Post would be willing to go that route. And it's just a matter of trying to reach out and make those connections. And hopefully after we have the research in front of us and kind of have a really solid direction, that's when we can reach out to the posts.
Great.
I love the idea, and that's definitely something we've considered moving forward.
Yeah, and Eric, you brought up an interesting angle to how this project was developed and how we do our discussions to come up with these projects. Because initially, the initial interest was they all had an interest in STEM. They wanted to work with Native American communities. And we started focusing on, well, what kind of program could we develop that would engage Native American communities in STEM? And quickly it went from, well, developing a program that engages Native Americans is great, but then how do we get people to use it or get involved in it? And, I kind of emphasized that I didn't see this as a STEM project. I saw it as a marketing project. The STEM is just the message, but the challenge is identifying a need and then marketing that need to the people that have the resources, time and effort and interest, which like we were talking about would be the posts. So it's not just enough to say that we need to engage more Native American youth in STEM. We've got posts that can do that. We need them to see themselves as that actionable piece in this. And that's where hopefully this project is going to help us, is in communicating that need, not just putting a label on it and hoping for the best. So
Hey, Thomas. Hey, Thomas and Eddie, this is Ben from LDP One. I was in Melissa's group, and there's a beautiful tie-in with our project as well, because one, recruiting new STEM campers is a great way to expose new populations to STEM just in general. And then all of the partnering organizations we reached out to, almost all of them were STEM focused. So if you can do a multi-pronged approach and use some of those resources from those other organizations that are promoting STEM, I think you got a great tie-in with the project from the previous year.
That's a good comment, Ben. And so TJ and Colleen, if you guys want to go to that program impact page, you can find the presentation for that group and their presentation materials. And then I've got all their backup documentation. So, you know, if you find an angle there, let me know, we can regroup, and then I can share all of their materials with you. But that's the exact kind of synergy we'd love to have happen. So thanks, Ben.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ben. And Ben, if you don't mind, would you share your email address so that we can try to walk through and have you guide us through what you produced?
Yeah, sure thing. I'm on the road. I think somebody else probably on the line could just send it out on the chat group as well. But it's dnichols@harkinsbuilders.com. I don't know, Eddie, is that something you can throw up in the chat?
Yes,
yeah, or I can do it. I've got it up right now.
Oh, actually, I think this is our last slide. So I'll just unshare the screen too, and then I can do it. Anybody else from the current class or last year's class that just wants to talk through their thought process?
Yeah, Eddie, this is Benny, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think my project is going to tie into this COI pretty well. I called Eddie. I was very far behind on getting my proposal in. He said, "What's going on?" I said, "Look, I just got promoted. I've got all this stuff going on. I don't know how to keep my head above water. I'm like trying to survive." And he said, "I think that sounds a lot like a project." And so my project turned into, what are those challenges that people face when getting promoted? When you step up out of your comfort zone and you take on a new challenge and you step up into a leadership role, or you're put into a leadership role, I want to kind of shed some light on the challenges that are associated with it and encourage others that you don't need to know everything going into a leadership role, but it's a learning experience that you're going to continue to learn and grow as you experience more. And so, my plan is to put together a leader development kind of toolkit to kind of look at some of the leadership materials that we discuss in the LDP class. And also to develop a panel of various leaders ranging in experience and type, because leadership is taught very differently between the military and industry, and kind of want to shed some light on that contrast, while at the same time providing other young leaders who have been promoted or in similar situations to share their experience. And also to have experienced leaders kind of talk about how they may have overcome the things that we as young leaders are experiencing, and kind of what their expectations are and how they might be different for a young leader coming into a new role versus someone who's been at it for a long time and kind of makes a horizontal move. And so kind of want to shed some light on those unknowns. And so if you have any suggestions on that, I'd be more than happy to hear that. I also have some fellow LDPers helping me out and submitted the panel actually as a JETC abstract, and hoping it gets selected and you can see us all there.
Oh, sorry. I have a very sensitive scroll mouse here.
That's cool, Benny. I love that you submitted an abstract too.
Yeah, and for some of these, Vinny's another example of, once he produces it, then it's going to be, okay, he's got a tool. How do we get people to use it? So he's had discussions with the young professionals as an audience that this would impact. So we want to find ways that these projects can get institutionalized rather than just sitting on a shelf somewhere. If this is something that Vinny wants to continue to spearhead and be the champion of, that's awesome too. But we do want the projects to find a home when we're doing their development, so that they know within the leadership, the volunteer side and on the staff side, where each of them would land.
Hey, Eddie. It's Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, so along those lines of institutionalizing our project ideas, I actually, while, just during this call, but really before this call, when we were doing some of the curriculum review last month with Mike and company, and I'll go ahead and give credit to Ree for this idea, because she's a lot smarter than I am and more perceptive as well. But so we think there's a lack of a pipeline for, in a sense, for what we do after LDP is done. And I think in a way, if there was a way to have an outcome or a job of sorts lined up for LDP graduates within SAME after they graduate to continue the work that they start with these projects, that may help to institutionalize some of those things. So just off the wall, rough idea, that might look like me as working on a resilience project, which I'll talk about in a second. Working on a resilience project after I finish what I think is going to be like the first quarter to half of the work necessary during LDP, then becoming a resiliency COI fellow of sorts to continue that work and build on it to help achieve those strategic plan goals specific to resilience and government industry partnership over the next couple of years. So yeah, anyway, I do want to send you that idea in writing for next year's LDP to work on as a UPIC project, but just wanted to throw that out. And then if anybody's interested, I am working on a resilience project. So as I left Korea last summer to move to Colorado, I of course took several flights over several days and then drove across the country, and I just saw a slew of different responses to COVID, none of which seemed to, of course, everyone was just dealing with slightly different circumstances, but everyone was also, I think, starting from a different knowledge base, a different capability base, and not knowing particularly where they were going with that. And that wasn't unique to, industry and government, but just even within the Air Force, there was at least what seemed like a lack of a unified response. So I started out pitching my project to General Schrodel and company as developing a framework for government industry partnership in pandemic response. And unlike what was mentioned up front, General Schrodel actually cautioned me to back off from that a little bit, thought it was maybe too much to bite off in 1 year, and just challenged me to come up with like a list of 20 questions that organizations need to ask to prepare for a pandemic. So that's what I'm working on. I had some interviews in December that went really well. I had a few more lined up for January, but between the holidays and I contracted COVID actually, some of those fell apart. So I'll pitch the same thing that I did yesterday at our LDP call. If anyone knows of anyone or is interested in being interviewed for that report, which will turn into an article for TME if it gets selected, then I'm happy to put my email in the chat, and I'll follow up with an email to the group as well, seeing if anybody's interested.
Yeah, Josh, that's great. Thank you. I love it all. And I love the forward thinking. So, and we've got 5 minutes left. We're on a tight schedule today because there's a back-to-back meeting that has to use the same GoToMeeting license. So does anybody have anything else they either want to toss out there, or, if you don't want to get into the conversation because we only have 5 minutes left, type it into the chat and we can follow up with you. And if you do that, make sure you put your email in there too, so we have it. I don't want to just stop the conversation. Just want to make sure we're watching the clock for Eddie's next meeting.
Yeah, well, I'll just add one more comment to what Josh was saying, is that with the way these projects are working, ideally, the part of the society that you're developing the project with and implementing it with, that they would want to stay invested in your project. We can't really assign you as a program to these places. We can incorporate as many volunteers as we want within the LD infrastructure, but resilience needs to find value enough to want you to stay on, or you just tell them, I would like to volunteer to continue to spearhead this. And I'm guessing most of the time they're going to say, great, you're the person. So everybody should feel comfortable asserting themselves within their respective COIs that house their project.
Yeah, or making the connections. I think that's one thing that we can do as COIs is make connections with people, right? Like, I mean, I think about some of the things they're doing, like that I think our post would like to do, or maybe another COI. So some of that's for us as well to help them. And I think that's what they're asking for, like help us connect with another COI, or help us connect with a post, or, to take on more leadership, to take on and serve SME in a better way. I think that's their frustration. I sense anyway, is they're not getting connected and they don't exactly know how to do that. And so
Right.
that we can come in and do that as leaders ourselves.
I agree.
Yep. We're also recruiting for an alumni POC on the program. Ideally, it'll be one of the graduates, but we haven't invested as much time in the alumni-ness of this program. And after we graduate this coming class, we will have 36 participants that are in alumni status that we need to keep cracking the whip. We don't want them to disappear.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, I think COVID's playing into that as well, right? Like if we could all just actually attend our in-person events that we've planned, I think just by the nature of having everybody together, it would take off. But maybe it's something we need to prioritize a little better for the future. And the COI can definitely do that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I have to close this down so I can get to the next meeting.
All right, guys, have a great day.
Yeah, thank you all for joining. It is great to see some new faces, as Mike said. We're here every month. Go to our webpage and log into your SCME account and go to COIs and click the little check button to make sure you're getting our emails. And we appreciate everybody joining the discussion today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day,
Bye.
everybody.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks. Bye.
Colleen, you'll need to re-sign in. It's a different link.
Did I ask